Hello, everybody. My name is Mostly Woke. Welcome to today's show. And I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Instead of the normal off the cuff commentary that I like to do, I decided to try out making an info video. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the Star-Spangled Banner and a little bit of the contextual history of its writer, Francis Scott Key. So I would love to get your feedback below in the comments. Let me know if you like the video, please consider subscribing. And let's go ahead and start it off. In 1931, Herbert Hoover signed H.R. 14 into law, making the Star-Spangled Banner the official national anthem of the United States. But has it always been the patriotic verse we know it as today? And was it really based on a heroic defense of American soil? Or did its creator have a darker, more personal inspiration? To start, let's look at the author, Francis Scott Key, and why he wrote the now famous poem. On September 13th, 1814, while Key was held captive aboard a British ship, he witnessed the failed bombardment of Fort McHenry in Baltimore. The following day, he felt so inspired by the fort's defense that he wrote a poem that described the attack using very patriotic language, if you will. The poem Key created that day was originally named Defense of Fort McHenry. When we compare this poem to the modern national anthem, you'll notice that in most settings you only hear the first out of 4 verses. And in fact, parts of Key's poem were already dropped by the earliest recording of the Star-Spangled Banner in 1939, which only included the first and fourth verses. The third and probably most infamous of the original 4 is the one we will be reading and examining today. The verse reads, "And where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and battle's confusion, a home and a country should leave us no more? Their blood was washed out of their footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or gloom of the grave. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." To understand the outdated wording that we see in this poem, we will turn to Jason Johnson, an associate professor at Morgan State University, Baltimore. Professor Johnson explains that essentially, and this is his quote, Francis Scott Key was happy to see former slaves who had joined the British as part of their colonial marines getting slaughtered and killed as they attempted to take Baltimore. These colonial marines that Johnson mentioned were British Marine units composed of former black slaves. Upon further investigation, I discovered that Key fought in the Battle of Bladensburg less than a month earlier in August of 1814. This battle is infamously known as the greatest disgrace ever dealt to American arms, and is plausible that Key saw many, if not all, of his men killed by colonial marines, which likely contributed to his proclivity to racism. Key's race-based biases are only overshadowed by his vigor for personal gain, which can be seen by him representing both slaves seeking their freedom and the owners of runaway slaves, all while owning slaves himself. In addition, he was quoted as stating publicly that Africans in America are and I quote, "a distinct and inferior race of people, which all experiences prove to be the greatest evil that afflicts a community." Unquote. This brief history of Francis Scott Key and the events that likely contributed to his writing of the original Star-Spangled Banner gives a bleak view of our national anthem. Luckily, in the U.S. tradition of trying to make the best of our dark past, during the American Civil War, Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote what is now known as the unofficial 5th verse of our national anthem, which reads, "When our land is illumined with liberty's smile, if a foe from within strike a blow at her glory, down, down with the traitor that dares to defile the flag of her stars and a page of her story. By the millions unchained, who our birthright have gained, we will keep her bright blazon forever unstained, and the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave, while the land of the free is the home of the brave." This verse is a message of hope that shows real patriotism is not only the willingness to recognize when a foe from within arises, but our drive to fight tooth and nail for what this country stands for: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. In this same vein, it is important that left-wing voters, political activists, and politicians take back symbols of U.S. patriotism like the flag of the United States, which has seemingly been co-opted by certain Republican groups in recent years to represent U.S. nationalism and superiority, instead of patriotism, which is devotion to and vigorous support for one's country. Like at the beginning of any grassroots movement, it is important to give everyone a way of participating, no matter their limitations. My recommendation is the small but highly symbolic gesture of hanging the stars and stripes alongside other symbols of equality, such as BLM or LGBTQ flags. This symbolizes the reality that patriotism is solidarity with every member of one's community, because a service rendered to one is a service rendered to all. By writing the fifth verse, Oliver Wendell Holmes unintentionally transformed the Star-Spangled Banner into what it should have always been, a symbol of our living Constitution and our willingness to defend the U.S. from foes both foreign and domestic.